Do you want to leave this here? I can
Make it easy for the
put my,
people.
okay. I'll be taking, what?
I want you guys to be laying low the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I've let a lot of services from my dad.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm sorry.
We met via email 2 months ago.
Oh, okay. If I didn't recognize the face. Sorry?
Yes, because you said you'd like to. As they say on American dog. It's totally different now, but it's nice because they. I'm going to sit here until I do the stuff, and then I'll sit down. Good morning. My name is Lori Cross. I'm a member of the Worship Arts team, and I want to welcome you in person and online to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are a community that is spiritually alive, justice-centered, and inclusive. All are welcome in our house of worship. I have a few announcements today. First of all, we have a guest minister at the pulpit this morning, the Reverend Anthony Johnson. Though he has visited before, some of you, like me, may not have met him before, so I'll give you a few salient facts. He began his ministry in 1977, 45 years ago, so he knows what he's doing now. He lives in Orange, New Jersey, and he now freelances in a few different areas You could explore that with him after the service. I hope that our trustee Jake gave you a flyer. We have a concert coming up October 15 with Daryl and Mary Courtley, Gentle Jazz. So you want to kind of save that date. Again, that's October 15. Finally, I do want to announce that the Odyssey program will be continuing this month. On September 18 of this, obviously, this is September. On September 18 of this month, our Odyssey film subject will be Beverly Hayes, and we generally begin the Odyssey program at 1 o'clock in the afternoon after the morning services. But you can follow that in the e-blast for more details.
Good morning. I've been introduced. I'm Reverend Anthony Johnson. I'm pleased to be back here. Oh, thank you. I had to put it on because I was driving outside of my town. Is that better? Yes. Oh, good. I've actually done a number of services and events where people were all wearing masks, and I can blast through it, but then that sort of defeats the purpose of the mask. So I'm delighted to be with you this morning. I believe we have a chalice lighting, and we light the chalice as a symbol of the light of the love in which we live our lives, the light of the justice we seek in the world, and the light of the truth that we, as seekers, strive to discern, to understand, and to put forth to others. And these are the opening words. Beneath all curious customs and beliefs, deeper than ecclesiastical creeds, more vital and basic than priestly rites, stands one impressive fact. Man and woman touch infinity. Our home is in immensity. We live, move, and have our being in an eternity. This magnificent assertion is our greatest affirmation. Those are the words of the great Universalist theologian Clarence Russell Skinner. And now let us sing together, rising in body or in spirit, hymn number 108, My Life Flows On.
How can I keep from
That is good. Some congregations really don't sing very well, now do they? They sing real deal. Yeah, they think, though, in harmony until they start thinking. And then they... Until they start talking. And then they start getting into the you, we will disagree about whatever we can as long as we stay friends mode. Okay, so let me see. This is your order service. Oh. I think we're not doing a reading today because I don't have a reading that actually goes with this sermon I'm doing. I have some good quotations in it, but there are no really good succinct readings that I have yet found. So I've put my good succinct words into the sermon. So you'll have to wait till then for succinctness. So I believe it's time to move on to the offertory then. And offertory is a really important part of our service, not measured by the amount of money it brings in, but because it is a ritual of commitment. A commitment to this congregation, a commitment to our larger Unitarian Universalist movement, and a commitment to the community which this congregation lives in and serves. So I invite you now to share in this ritual of commitment by giving generously to the support of the fellowship and the wider community. Please come forward please come forward.
We've come to the portion of the service where we share the milestones and passages of our fellowship family. First, I want to acknowledge that tomorrow is Labor Day, which was first celebrated in New York City in 1882. So this will be the 140th celebration and honoring of the contributions of the workers here in the United States, contributions to our strength, prosperity, and well-being. So as you go for a meal or fill your car with gas, please mentally say a note of thanks for those who actually will be working on Labor Day. And we do have a milestone from Jerry Silk. She had a visit from her 21-year-old niece, Shayna Silk, from Salt Lake City, Utah. They hadn't seen each other for 7 years. It was a wonderful visit, and she is, in Jerry's words, beautiful.
Now let us enter into the spirit of meditation. We gather as a community of faithful people seeking goodness in the world, on this earth, this tiny orb circling the sun. However small it may seem in the vastness of the universe, the planet Earth is our world. It is our home. We are its inhabitants. We make and remake the world in our best actions and our worst follies. In our personal lives, in the lives of people and peoples, nations, faiths, and movements. There is an old hopeful saying, "The world will be fair." Fair in the sense of a beautiful day and a beautiful place, and fair in the relations between persons and other creatures, between persons and the planet. In declaring that the world will be fair, we want to know that the world is reliable, that we can understand it, that we can count on its cycles and its seasons. But we also want ourselves and all people to be reliable. Reliable in treating one another fairly, reliable in nurturing children and caring for elders, reliable in healing the wounds of life that every person suffers, and some suffering more than others and needing more healing. Reliable in peace taking the place of war, though we know it is reliable only as we make it so. And reliable as injustice taking the place of injustice. We are small beings on a small planet in the vastness of all space. But here we live in this world. It is our opportunity and challenge to make this world as safe and fair for all who live here as it can be, that all may live well, and that the world will be well. Amen, and blessed be. And it's time for us to sing another hymn. Calm Soul of All Things. This is one of my favorites.
This is new to us. We've not done
Oh, thank you for being willing to do that.
Thank you for bringing it to us.
Yeah.
It's number 88 in your Greg hymn notes.
Oh.
New, we don't have a slide for it.
I assumed you did the slide before. It didn't occur to me. That's 88. It's a simple number.
No, there's
It's a palindromic number.
rise in body or spirit.
Yes.
Come, soul of all things, make it mine to feel amid the city's jar that there abides a peace of thine I did not make and cannot mar. The will
live. Come, come, me mourn, or let me die, before I have begun to live.
Okay. Now, to some extent, I'll disappoint those of you who are looking for a Labor Day focus in the sermon. Being a real honest-to-goodness leftist, I saved that up for May Day, the International Workers' Holiday, which for me is one of the most important holidays of the year. Being the child of working-class people, having spent a part of my adult life doing working-class jobs. But it is still great to be here on Labor Day because it is still a holiday and we still acknowledge that all labor has value, that all who labor do good in the world, that labor is part of our lives. But also part of our lives is something I think it's very important to talk about, which is privacy, which is kind of thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. Asking, is privacy still possible or even desirable? Well, what does privacy mean to us? Privacy has long been a value in Western society. It is protected in British common law and the U.S. Constitution. It is codified in the European Union. In the words of the late Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas, quote, privacy involves the choice of the individual to disclose or to reveal what he believes, what he thinks, what he possesses, end of quote. This choice is a valued and valuable part of modern life, this ability to choose what we reveal, what we know, what we keep to ourselves. In the mid-20th century, the poet and children's books author and essayist Phyllis McGinley put it this way: the human animal needs a freedom seldom mentioned, freedom from intrusion. He needs a little privacy quite as much as he wants understanding or vitamins or exercise or prayer. That's from The Province of the Heart, 1959. Privacy means we can keep aspects of our lives, our beliefs, and ourselves to ourselves. In fact, it means we can have secrets. Now, secrecy has, for good reason, been subject to harsh examination in recent years because keeping secrets can be used and has been used to hide wrongdoing and to control others. There can be bad secret keeping, justified on the basis of a right to privacy, but often doing more than protecting privacy. There are times when that right must fall in order to protect persons. There are situations in which no harm is done by a person keeping something to him, to her, or to their self. Individuals have secret dreams, ambitions, and even beliefs, which they keep to themselves until they feel confident to reveal and act on them. There may be a past hurt that a person wants to move beyond and can only do so if they do not bring it up with others. There may be risks taken that resulted in failures that you have learned from and now want to leave behind. You or I may know something that will do no harm if not shared, but can do great harm if shared. Perhaps something that will put one or another of us in danger. There's this wonderful quote from Shoshana Zuboff in her book, The Art of Surveillance Capitalism, where she says, if you've got nothing to hide, you are nothing. Yeah, okay. That struck a chord, didn't it? Yeah, if you've got nothing to hide, you are nothing. Shoshana Zuboff. That's not a problem so much with her name as with the lisp I had therapy for when I was a kid 60 years ago. Zuboff is a social psychologist, professor emerita at the Harvard Business School, and author. And her book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, which came out in 2019, started me on the train of thought that led to this sermon. Zuboff reminds us that the right to privacy is closely tied to the ability to make decisions. Privacy is a form of power. Like most power in our society, it is not evenly distributed. The economic divides in our society apply to privacy as well as to other rights and privileges. The more wealth someone has, the easier it is to preserve one's privacy. Now, Zuboff is a classic liberal who believes that capitalism within a democratic political system with appropriate laws and regulations will not only generate wealth, but sustain a free and open society. She makes it clear in her criticisms of what she calls surveillance capitalism that the state must at times rein in the excesses of the market and the actions of people in the market. Surveillance capitalism, she argues, is a threat not just to personal privacy, but to democracy itself. So what is it? Zuboff defines surveillance capitalism as, quote, literally claiming human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data. Although some of these data are applied to product or service improvement, the rest are declared as proprietary behavioral surplus, fed into advanced manufacturing processes known as machine intelligence, and fabricated into prediction products that anticipate what you will do now and later. Finally, these predictions are traded in a new kind of marketplace for behavioral predictions. She calls behavioral predictions futures, or she calls this behavioral futures markets, and then says, surveillance capitalists have grown immensely wealthy from these trading options, for many companies are eager to lay bets on our future behavior. Google invented and perfected surveillance capitalism, end of quote. So in this context, I see a reminder of this need for sanctuary. I am not here to rail about all the things that governments and peoples and businesses do wrong. I want to affirm the need for sanctuary. The home has long been thought of and recognized in law as a sanctuary. In keeping with much older legal tradition, the Bill of Rights protects the sanctity of our homes. Home can be a sanctuary for privacy, whether for beliefs, relationships, or behaviors. In a totally wired society, which if we don't already live in it, we are fast approaching, home is less of a sanctuary. There are threats to privacy. Government, for one. Justifiable fear of the violation of personal privacy by government is nothing new. The past century has abounded with such violations. This nation, having just come out of the McCarthy era and still in the Cold War when I was a child, knew of wiretaps, license plate checks, and infiltration of political groups by the police or the FBI. I mean, I knew about that. If anyone here is my age, do you remember hearing all those things in the 50s and 60s? In 1977 to 81, during my first parish ministry, which was in Burbank, California, I knew that when I spoke on the phone with a retired colleague who lived nearby, someone would be listening on those calls. Not because of me, but because of that colleague who was often referred to by his fellow UU ministers as Saint Stephen Fritchman. While I served on the steering committee of the Los Angeles Commission on Police Repression from 1978 to 1981, the LAPD went through the trouble of establishing a false Latino rights group in East Los Angeles to infiltrate our coalition. I knew others at that time who endured much more of this than I did personally. People who had spent their lives in Los Angeles and were much more connected and thus in much more visible and risky positions. In the age of internet and cell phones, the federal government and local police agencies have access to huge amounts of data about anyone that might interest them. Google maintains a database called Sensor Vault that law enforcement agencies regularly access via search warrant. And this has often led to false arrests and jailing of innocent individuals, as well as to claims of crimes solved with these records. Today, police forces get warrants not only for information on individuals, which was the case with old-fashioned wiretapping and searching, but on any phone used anywhere near the scene of an investigation. According to the New York Times, I quote here, detectives noted how precise the data was and how it was collected even when people weren't making calls or using apps, end quote. The FBI obtains numerous secret warrants known as national security letters to gather personal data from private companies. The FBI's requests do not require approval by a judge and usually include a gag order. So the entities receiving these letters even cannot tell people they've received them. After several court rulings found the gag orders to be in violation of the First Amendment, Congress passed the USA Freedom Act that requires the review of secrecy orders. Of the about 500,000 national security letters issued between 2001 and 2019, 750 have been made public through legal action. Several other 100,000 have not. And business has long sought ways to learn about current and potential customers. The intent of market research has always been to identify potential customers and persuade them to purchase a product or a service. Now, Zuboff makes a strong case. And remember, this is a professor in a business school. It's not like she's against business and marketing and things like this. But she's against the misuse of the techniques. Zuboff makes a strong case that massive collection data by Google, Facebook, and other companies can be a breach, and is indeed a breach, of all previously accepted standards of privacy, and used in a way that goes beyond persuasion to going to control. They are engaged in what Zuboff calls an all-out war on randomness. Algorithms not only predict behavior, they shape it in a manner that embodies B.F. Skinner's behaviorist utopia in the novel Walden 2. Skinner argued that freedom and dignity are illusions that get in the way of social efficiency. Skinner's argument has been taken up by leading intellectuals in the world of the internet technology. In the world of internet technology. First in anticipation of the developments, more recently in decades of activity within Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and other companies. Personal boundaries, Zuboff writes, are bad for business. Then there is synergy between government and business surveillance. Since the signing of the Patriot Act on October 26, 2001, gosh, can you believe it? It's been 21 years. Since then, federal and local police agencies have had increased powers to violate our freedoms. For the first 5 years after the Patriot Act, I was on a watch list and could not get an airplane boarding pass without going to customer service, whereas in the past I could print it on my computer or get it in a kiosk at the airport. I was never told why. Then, just as inexplicably, I was again able to print my boarding passes at home, and never told why. Police agencies have looked jealously on the internet companies that, from the start, were able to operate largely outside the legal restraints that apply to most industries. Led by Google, they made declarations of what they would do and that they could do it. They declared that what is now surveillance capitalism, a term they did not use, was inevitable because of the inevitability of the growth of technology. Government and law had no right or power to constrain them. They claimed that the right to gather every individual's personal information and make money from this information any way they could, and neither the individual nor the state could prevent their doing so. The goal of such gathering is a seamless model of business without constraints. With our eyes glued to our screens, face-to-face social interactions wither, critical thinking atrophies, and we let this happen, and democracy declines. The way it has developed was not inevitable. It was the result of business decisions by executives and investors who cared less for freedom, dignity, and democracy than for profit. It has been facilitated by our fascination with the internet, our electronic devices, and what we do with them. But technology can and does enhance freedom. We can use these technologies to advance freedom, to improve relationships, to build more justice in the world. Much of what we can do with these devices is positive. Still, to quote Zuboff, quote, "The declaration of a war on terror legitimated every inclination to enshrine machine-produced certainty as the ultimate solution to social uncertainty," end quote. But I say it is uncertainty that makes human freedom not only desirable, but possible. Frighteningly, I even heard a young adult say with a straight face that the algorithms were so good that they would soon make better decisions for individuals than individuals could make for themselves. That is one of the scariest thoughts I've ever heard. Well, one more step toward a complacent citizenry and confirmation of Zuboff's assertion that surveillance capitalism is anti-democratic. If people believe that algorithms could make better decisions than we can make ourselves. Which leads to the question, is privacy still possible? I'm happy to say that Zuboff believes that privacy is still possible because she spent a lot of years of research, both before and after she retired from the business school at Harvard, studying this sort of thing. It is possible, and we must assert it in order to defend our democracy. Privacy is possible, and we must defend it in order to save democracy. Human freedom has always been a friction to oppressive structures. The surveillance capitalists have not taken away our freedom. We have not been paying attention all the time, and that has allowed surveillance capitalists to override it at times, but we can exercise and assert our freedom. This may require relinquishing some of the pleasures and conveniences of the networked society. Some people I know have left Facebook and other online platforms for this reason. There are artists who have created masks that can confound facial recognition technology. Many internet users provide false data in the profile sections of platforms and applications. This is in the spirit of some of the citizens' actions in the 1970s, when wall-mounted TV cameras began appearing in public places. And I know for a fact that some individuals, I won't say who, but some individuals used tape and film can caps to cover the lenses of some of these cameras in public. And now we take them for granted. To assert and exercise civic freedom, we need to sustain our inner freedom and not allow the demands of the wired society, as useful as much of that wiring is, to distract us from exercising our autonomy. Protecting our personal boundaries is a way to protect our freedom. Zuboff writes, quote, "No matter how much is taken from me, this inward freedom to create meaning remains my ultimate sanctuary," unquote. This inward freedom. And that is a thought that should be familiar to all Unitarian Universalists. We value our inward freedom, and this is a community where we're able to encourage that and share a common freedom. The will to create and to live future projects is essential. This is the meaning of having the freedom to have a personal will and to act on it. This freedom requires privacy, and privacy requires the ability to keep secrets. Long before the internet became prevalent, the philosopher Cicely Bach wrote, "Secrecy is as indispensable to human beings as fire and as greatly feared." So, is privacy desirable? My answer is, if you haven't guessed, yes. If we care about human freedom, if we care about human dignity, if we care about justice, if we care about the future, if we care about each other as individuals, we must care about privacy. It makes sense that the enemies of Roe v. Wade hated the fact that the case was decided on a woman's right to privacy. Personal privacy makes control of one's life possible. If people have a right to privacy, there are limits to the extent that other individuals, that businesses, or the state can control how they live their lives. The overturning of Roe v. Wade threatens more than reproductive choice. Yes, there will always be restraints and limitations on how we live. That is part of how a real world functions. That is part of the way cultures express their norms. Culture and society have to have rules. But we need, as Anne Royfi puts it, to fold ourselves away from others just enough to preserve something that we cannot share without destroying our inner landscape. Something we cannot share without destroying our inner landscape. The liberal religious congregation is one place to know and nurture the inner landscape, and to share when we choose to, and not share it when we don't choose to. But if we do share it, we can share it in trust with others without having to stretch the boundaries that make individuality possible. It is a safe place to share when sharing is appropriate and needed. The inner landscape, where the will to act and the ability to be free are hatched and nurtured. Hatched and nurtured. What a great saying. This is why privacy is desirable and why we must protect it. Not just for ourselves, but for others who have less privilege and freedom than most of us do. And we must do it for the sake of the future, not just your and my future, but everyone's future. Privacy is really a human right. May it be so. Amen.
Would you rise in body or spirit and join in hymn number 155, Circle Round for Freedom. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul. For the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
The courage of the early morning's dawning and the strength of the eternal hills and the peace of the evening's ending, and the love of God be in our hearts. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so.